Hi, you're watching Youth and Work series. I'm Amrit Sabharwal and you're here on RPTV. Today we have two special guests, Rochelle and Alec.
Hello.
We will be talking about experiences they've had with their injuries. So please tell us a little about your involvement with the Legal Aid Clinic.
I got involved as a law student. I wanted to go and volunteer someplace that had to do with employment law and health and safety law. I volunteered for them during the year and then I work for them now for the summer. So I'm a first L law student.
Okay, so could you tell us a little about your injuries, your work injuries that you've had? So Alec.
Yeah, well, my story isn't nearly as awful for me as Rochelle's is, but it's basically just a story about a case where I should have refused unsafe work, but I didn't. So basically, I was working in the construction industry in Vancouver. We're building condos, and I'm 4 stories down, so we're in the parking garage. And I'm in the bottom of an elevator shaft, and we're grinding away of this tar that's on the walls. Don't ask me why, we just were told to do it, so I'm doing it. And it's producing all this dust, like a lot of dust. And unbeknownst to me at the time, but it's actually called silica dust, and it's really deadly. It can cause explosions if there's any ignition, and it can cause permanent scarring of the lungs. And all me and my friend had were these little respiratory masks, these little white ones you can buy at Home Depot. That's all we had doing this. And we had 2 fans pointing upwards trying to get the dust out. So we're working away for a couple hours, and then the superintendent, he comes downstairs to talk to us. And supposedly, at around like 15 minutes beforehand, 4 stories up, other workers were complaining and saying, I'm not gonna work in this dust. This is silly, this is dangerous. They knew about silica dust and they knew their rights, and they're refusing unsafe work. So the super comes down to talk to us and he tells us about this, and I kind of think, okay, well, he's going to tell us to stop then because this is unsafe. Instead, what he does is he says, turn off the fan and get back to work.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically, right then and there, it's just like, are you kidding me? Is this what you really want me to do this? And I should have got up and said, no, this is unsafe, I'm not going to do this. Instead, I went, okay, put my mask back on and went back to grinding. And that was that, and I really regret it today.
Is that legal to be grinding silica dust with just those respiratory masks?
I actually think in Ontario, I don't think it is. I think it's classified under a certain type of dangerous substance, and that you're required to have proper respiratory gear of doing it. It's probably the same in BC, but again, it's one thing having the law in the books. It's another thing being in the bottom of an elevator shaft and having your manager enforce it, right? And I didn't know who to complain, I didn't know who to talk to, and luckily enough, I wasn't permanently injured, so.
What was your injury though? Like, was it really bad or?
Well, no, it could have been potentially bad. That's the thing. No, I was a lucky one.
Yes.
No, I got away free. And maybe 10 other times I would have gone away free too. But it's that one time out of 100, that one time out of 10, where that one worker who doesn't complain, who goes and does this, and something awful happens, and then you have to put up with it.
Education is a very integral part of being able to even voice anything, like any of your complaints, because if you don't have that knowledge that you have these rights in place, then you really go on and do your work and just try to earn money. So I feel like that's really a big barrier of not knowing what your rights is. So I feel like for youth out there, they should really know first what their rights is, second what their first aid policy, health and safety policy is in place in their company that they're working at, so that they would know who to turn to whenever an injury happens to them in the workplace. More like social media platforms involvement in terms of raising awareness, letting people know what their rights are. Like, I think there's only a few websites that show what your rights are as a worker. So I think that one's very important. And in terms of law in particular, I believe maybe Alec can put his input into it.
Yeah, well, every single workplace should have posted a list of all your rights. in terms of your right to refuse unsafe work, your right to have someone in a safety committee, and various other ones. So they should all be there, but whether or not that happens in practice, again, I'm a law student, I'm a lawyer in training, but it comes down to, A, you need good laws, and B, you need good enforcement of those laws. You need people going in there and making sure, yes, this is posted, yes, everyone knows, and yes, there's a plan if something goes wrong. And oftentimes you just don't have that.
Wow. And what do you guys feel about youth and the challenges they face in the workforce?
Well, actually, I could probably tackle that one. For youth, there's probably really two main things that I really felt as like a youth worker in construction, and one would be, peer pressure, and the other would be just knowing to ask. So for peer pressure, for instance, you don't want to be that person who complains. It's different per workforce, but a lot of times, there's this kind of culture of being the tough guy or the good hard worker that doesn't, say, oh, I'm not sure this is safe, I don't want to do this. Sometimes you suffer some ridicule about it. But I think it's really important, especially for younger workers, to realize that your health and safety is worth more than any peer pressure you could ever suffer in the workplace. An example I like to use is just think back to the peer pressure that you kind of maybe underwent in elementary school, and whether or not you think that was worth it and that you really cared so much what Brian and Becky thought of you in 5th grade, and you don't. You think it was all silly. And I look back on my kind of like close call in the workplace and the fact that I didn't exercise my right to refuse unsafe work because I didn't want to let the team down. It was silly, it was stupid. I needed to protect, my fellow co-workers. I needed to protect, say, a future friend who might be in this industry. And I let my own kind of insecurities and wanting to go along kind of get in the way of that. And it's tough. I wish I'd done it differently, but it's one of these things that put me on the path that I'm on.